Next, we're going to look at creating a door which we can interact with and remove, and eventually animate to sink into the floor. Now, just like with our lights, we're going to create a blueprint to do this. As easy it would be to grab a cube and completely block up your door. We wouldn't be able to program that, so we've got to create a blueprint to do this. So into our blueprints folder, and we're going to click the green button to add a new blueprint class. And just like our lights, we're not going to be able to possess these or control them, so we'll just use an actor, and we'll call it simple door. Now once you've created your new blueprint, double click it to open it up. So the first thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to go up into my components here, and I'm going to add a static mesh, just like I did with the lights. And I'm going to call this door mesh. Door mesh. And over in the right details, I'm going to add a cube. There you go, cube. Now the viewport we're looking at here, it's a little bit deceiving. It's hard to really see the scale of the objects that you're creating. So while I shape this door, or shape this cube into my door, I'm actually going to make this a bit smaller, and I'm going to put this at the side so I can see how big this cube is going to be. I'm going to pull this in. So already I can see that cube is actually probably about twice the size as I thought it was going to be. So it's actually quite important to edit this in real time. So make sure that you're editing in your actual blueprint. And I'm going to make this nice and thin. And I'd like it to sit. I'm going to quickly edit where this is. In the middle like that. So let's pull this up. Just make sure they are perfect. So there's no way for my character to jump over that or crouch underneath it. The door's got to be open for us to proceed here. Perfect. So that's how big I want my door to be. Now I'm next going to add something called a box collision. So I'm going to click this green add again, and I'm going to type in box collision. And we're going to call this trigger area. Trigger area. Now what this box collision will be used for is the area our character needs to be standing in for us to be able to interact with this door. So I need to pull this out maybe to around about there. Let's make it a little bit taller. There we go. And I'll make it the length of the door, the width of the door as well. Looks about right to me, so I'm just going to have a quick look in the real world, or the game world. I'm actually going to pull that out a little bit more. So my character has to be standing inside this box in order to press E and open this door. Now before moving on, something just to check. If you look at, I've actually renamed that, trigger area. If you look at your trigger area here, now if you can see, my trigger area is in line with my door mesh, which means it's not part of my door. However, depending on what you've been clicked on, or you would have clicked on when you created this trigger area, it could potentially look like this for you. Now this means that your trigger area is a child of the door itself. It's attached to the door. You can close the door and it disappears. Now this isn't the biggest of issues if you're only making a door that opens and nothing else, because what it basically means is this is attached. So if I move my door, my trigger area goes with it. However, if it isn't attached, so if I drag it there, if I move my door now, the trigger area stays in the exact same place. So if your trigger area is attached to your door, just simply click and hold and drag it onto the door and it will detach it. So it should look like this. It's going to allow us to actually have more functionality with our door. So we'll be able to sink into the floor, and then when it's fully open, we'll be able to press E and actually close it back again. if you imagine that it's attached when our door sinks into the floor, obviously the trigger area is going to go with it, and then we're no longer going to be able to interact with the door. So make sure that's detached there. And once you've done that, compile it just to save it up, and then let's go to the event graph. Now, again, you're going to have these 3 starter nodes here. Just get rid of those, we don't need those ones right now. And we're going to call an event, or we're going to create an event which is called when something overlaps with that trigger area. So if we right click the trigger area, go to add event, and we're going to click on add on component begin overlap, and you'll see this node here. So like I said, whenever something, anything, a bullet, a prop, your character, when anything overlaps with this this box collision, this trigger area, this function is going to be called. So the first thing we need to do is check that the object, the entity that's entered this box, is actually our character. So we're going to right click underneath, and we'll say get player character. Pull this here. Pull a strand off this other actor pin here, and type in equals equals, the 2 symbols, equals equals, and attach it here. So what this is going to do is it's going to check that the actor that's walked into this or gone into this box is actually the player character. And we're going to attach this to something called a branch. Now as you go ahead with your Unreal development, you're going to get very familiar with branches because they're very important. They're basically how Unreal creates if statements, so they are very important. Now there's 2 ways to create a branch. You can right click and simply type in branch, and there it is. Or the quicker way is to hold B and just click, and a branch will appear. So I'm going to attach our main pins here, and I'm going to pull my condition in there. So what this is basically saying is, if whatever's passed into this box, this trigger area, is a player character, or is the player character, do something. So if it is the player character, that'll be true. Run this code here. If it isn't, you could technically make something on the false. We're not going to worry about the false right now. We're going to only worry about what happens if it is the player character, the character we're controlling. What happens if that walks in. So we're going to simply pull a strand off here, and we're going to say enable input. And we need to know what input or whose input to enable. So we're going to right click underneath and get player controller this time, not so player controller, not player character, and we're going to attach that to player controller. And that's done. That's that little bit of code finished. Now I'm going to pull a strand from here, and I'm going to quickly check if it works. So if you pull a strand and do print string, anything in this pink little area here will be what's printed out, and we'll say player is in the box. Let's give it a go, compile. So as soon as my character walks into this this box area now, there you go, you see at the top left, it says player is in the box. Every time I walk in, it triggers this line of text. Perfect. Now, there's an equally important step here, which we now have to do. We need to disable the input when we actually leave this area. Otherwise, we walk into the area, input is enabled, and we can walk away. We can walk away for another 3 hours and be 100 kilometers away from our door, but our input will still be enabled. So if we press E, the door would still open, even though we're nowhere near. So we need to disable that input when we leave. And it's basically the same process. So if we right click the trigger area, go to add event, and we're going to say end overlap this time, not begin overlap. So add on component, end overlap, and you'll get a very similar looking event here, event node. Now we're going to do the exact same thing, except for we're going to disable input rather than enable input. So we're going to check if, again, this is our character that's walked in. So let's pull a strand from other actor, and we're going to say equals equals again. I'm going to instead put this in the bottom one because I'm going to use this old node. There we go. So we're still checking for the same thing. We're still checking for a player character, so we can use that old node rather than drag a new one in. Saves us a little bit of space and time. Let's pull that down a little bit and let's create our branch. Attach our main strand, attach our condition, and like I said, instead of enabling input, we need to disable input. It is just on the bottom. Disable input, and again our player controller is going to be there. Let's print another string just to check this is working, and we'll say player has left the box. So let's give that a run. So player is in the box, and now when I leave, player has left the box. So my input has been disabled. I can no longer interact with this. Perfect, that's working. Now these print strings, they can't be seen when the game is finished. Once you export the game, the player won't be able to see these messages pop up. So if you do want something like text to appear, you'll need to do this in a different way. So we can just get rid of these now that we know they're working. Okay, so now we need to actually add the input. So I'm going to right click down here, and I'm going to search for interact. And there is action event there, interact. Now that is the interact event that we have attached to the E key. So I'm going to click that. So whenever our E key is clicked, if input is enabled, we'll be able to actually to interact with this door. So the first thing I'm going to do, and the only thing I suppose right now, is I'm going to say destroy component, and I'm going to select the door mesh. So destroy component, and let's move our door mesh down here for now. And let's give that a go. So it's going to just delete the door, remove the door completely. So let's have a look. In I walk, press E, and there goes the door. I can walk in. Give that another go. Walk up, press E, door opens, and I can access the house. I can also keep pressing E. Now every time I press E, that's still trying to delete the door that's already been deleted. Now that's going to cause potentially an issue. If I stop simulating, you can see I've had numerous errors here, which is telling me that it's trying to delete something that no longer exists. So it's a good idea to stop that from happening, and that's quite easy as well. So let's go back here, and before destroying the door, I'm going to move this up a little bit. I'm going to check if it's valid, if it exists. So I'm going to pull a strand from pressed. I'm going to say is valid, and I'm going to click this this question mark here, is valid. Just going to plot that in between, and we're going to just check that the door mesh is valid. Now if the door exists, then that means it is valid, the door is still there, and it'll destroy the door. Now if the door isn't valid, then nothing will happen. In fact, actually let's give it a go. Let's print a string, and we'll say door is already open. Let's go. Okay, door opens, and if I press E again, up in the top left we should see, there you are, door is already open. So it's no longer trying to delete an object that is already deleted, because the code is telling it not to do that. So if I stop simulating, brilliant, there's no errors whatsoever. So that's working correctly. Now, most doors in real life don't open by just vaporizing into atoms. So the next stage, just fall off. The next stage is to actually animate this. So I want to animate it so it sinks into the floor. Before moving on to this stage, can you make sure that your door operates as it should, as mine's operating now, and that you're not getting any errors when you repeatedly press E. If your door is having any issues, just quickly go back through the video and make sure that you followed all the steps as the video suggests you should.